You don't need to live abroad to speak fluently. I didn't. I want to tell you something about my own experience with learning languages. A lot of people assume that to be fluent, you have to live abroad. But in my case, I never lived in an English speaking country. If you don't know me, I'm a linguist and a French teacher. I teach worldwide and I speak 4 languages. Follow me if you want to stick around. So, the longest I ever stayed in an English speaking country was 1 week back in middle school during a school trip. That's it. And yet, today I work in English every day. So, how did I improve? Of course, I studied English at school, and in my first 2 years of university, English was my major before I switched to applied linguistics. But even though I had a good academic level, I still struggled to speak naturally in real life. I couldn't understand movies. I didn't know how to say everyday life things, even though I could write an essay in English. So, what changed everything was exposure, actually. What I want to say here is that I didn't even do it consciously. At some point, I had a different job and I didn't care about English much anymore. On top of it, in the meantime, I had learned another language, which is Portuguese, and I was much more into it, to be honest. So I kind of let go. But on the other hand, I also didn't reject English. That's a very important part of my point. I watched movies and TV shows, and yes, at first, I always used subtitles. I listened to music, read articles, watched YouTube in English. I started speaking to people. I practiced when I could, even if it wasn't perfect. And little by little, it became easier. Actually, the same thing happened with Portuguese. So when I first went to Brazil, I could already speak Portuguese just because I was always hanging out with Brazilians in France. At the time, I was practicing capoeira. So I was surrounded by people speaking Portuguese. And honestly, that's how I learned. It took me about a year and a half of speaking it daily to feel comfortable. I never really studied Portuguese in a formal way. I think I had one trimester at university, just 1 hour per week. And everything else I picked up by just being around the language. And that's the thing. You don't need to live abroad to learn a language. You just need to bring the language into your daily life as much as possible. And the good news is there are so many ways to do that. I'll let you know about this later.